Hello and welcome back to my channel. It's time for Crystal One-on-One and we happen to be at the Patio Restaurant and Lounge. Lovely spot in Bukoto. You need to try it out. And I have a lovely guest joining me today. She's a health and wellness coach and I think I can also call her a content creator and a digital influencer. I have Klaudia Kaliisa joining me today. I think I remember asking the first time, do people call you Claudia or Claudia?
So in my language, my parents called me Claudia, and that's how you would pronounce it in my language, in Polish. But as I, lived in different places, it's Claudia, Claudia, different.
Claudia?
Yeah.
That's first.
Yes.
Claudia. Okay. Yes. All right. So it's Claudia, and you are
whatever
Polish.
You want to choose. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I'm from Poland.
You're from Poland.
Yeah.
But you were settled in Uganda.
Yes.
I remember first basically interacting with you online, and you were talking about the transition, and of course you met your husband, a Ugandan, but in Denmark.
Yes. Yes.
In
Correct.
Denmark. So tell me about growing up in Poland. Do you go back often? Do you visit?
Yes. So I born and raised in Poland. I spent about 19 years of my life in Poland. And I grew up in a small city. Okay, I say small city, it's about 300,000 people. Yes,
okay.
And when I invited my husband for the first time, when I told him small, he was surprised how big that town was. Because he's like, when you say small, I thought it was your parents' house and then the two neighbors and then a little shop.
So it was like a little village.
Exactly. So that was a bit funny. So yeah, it's a small town for Poland because we have big cities. And somehow I always wanted to study abroad. I always wanted to live abroad. So I had all these big dreams of living in New York and California or whatever. And I come from a middle-class family, so when I told my parents I wanted to study abroad, they were like, well, we can't afford it, it's too pricey. But then we traveled to some city in Poland and we met my dad's friends, and their son was studying abroad at that time in Germany. I was like, oh, this is so amazing, maybe I don't necessarily have to go to the US and study
you were so sure
there.
even back then that you wanted to live.
I wanted to go as far away, experience the world. And I think because I was first born, so my parents were very strict.
Okay.
You can't go to a party, you can't do this. It was much easier with my sister.
So you were kind of thinking about also I'll have my independence.
Yes, I wanted to go as far away as possible so that I could, have my freedom. And then I came across Denmark, and I think because it's a EU, it's within European Union, then Europeans could come and study for free.
Okay.
So I was like, this is amazing. Though the country is very, very expensive, so you have to work on the side quite much. But yes, that's what I did when I was 19. I moved to Denmark to study in a country that I didn't know much about.
Did you know anyone?
No, I didn't know anyone. I didn't speak the language. Luckily, there's a lot of people who are fluent in English, and it was an international school, so that was easier. But I spent around 10 years in Denmark. That's where I met Paul, my husband, who happens to be Ugandan. We actually met in a Danish language school.
Oh, so you were learning the language?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
And he was too?
He was too, yes.
So wait, you said 10 years you spent it. So you never left?
No. I stayed there for 10 years. I finished my school, then I got a job.
So what did you do in school?
I studied marketing and sales. Okay. So I did my bachelor's there. And then I got my first job in a small-sized company. I was helping. They had a lot of projects going on in Poland. So because I spoke Polish, then I was helping them with that. Then I met Paul. Then I got another job. Then I became a fitness trainer on the side. It was like a hobby at the beginning.
So you started while you had like a full-time job?
Yes.
Okay.
So during my school, we had an internship, the last 6 months of the bachelor's, and we had to do an internship, and we could choose. We could either stay and find something in Denmark, or we could go back home, or maybe find something else. So I found this little Greek company and I was like, okay, it's been so cold in Denmark for these 3 years that I want to go to a warm place. And then I found this small company in Greece, and they offered internships to students in Scandinavia. So I was like, okay, let me try. So I went there for 4 months to a Greek island, and in 4 months I gained about 8 kilograms.
The food was great.
It was amazing, the food, the alcohol, the everything. And then I lived with a Greek lady, a Greek student also, but she was very active. She was diving, she was swimming, she was cycling. She let me drive her car while she was walking and, you know, cycling everywhere. And I was just eating and gaining weight. So she would like make pancakes.
Like you were on holiday though.
Of course. Because it was actually funny. I went there to escape from winter, but it was in 2012, I think. And Greece experienced the worst winter in 10 years. So it was actually very cold.
Oh.
So because the company didn't have money for heating, they told us to work from home. So I was actually on vacation. I was just, you know, I would turn on my Skype and wait for them to call me and give me tasks, but there was nothing to do.
But you were home.
I was home. I even, because they have this is it called shutters for the windows? So they have windows and these wooden things outside that you have to,
shutters.
So my bedroom would be so dark, I could not even see my hand at night.
What?
So every time I would wake up, I'm like, I must be like 3 a.m. Let me go back to sleep. And then like after waking 4 times, I'm like, wait a minute, I've woken up so many times. Let me check my phone. I'm like, whoa, it's midday.
So the sun would come up really late in the day.
No, yes, but also because of the shadows. Like it was so dark.
Oh my god!
Like there was no way the light could come in. So like my days completely switched. There was no tasks for me. So I was really on holiday, just sleeping until midday, having amazing food. My roommate would make pancakes with Nutella at like midnight. Life was good. But yeah, then I gained the weight. I went back to Denmark. My clothes wouldn't fit me anymore, so I had to like go a size bigger. And 8 kilo doesn't seem like so much, but I was really, really small. Like you could even see my bones. It was even unhealthy.
So the 8 kilos really
made a difference. Now when I see the pictures from back then, I'm like, I really looked unhealthy. It was not even nice. I don't know what I was thinking. So I gained 8 kilograms, and for me it was a lot. My grandfather told me I looked like a pig.
Oh man.
It was not nice, not sweet at all. So I was like, okay, I have to do something. And funny, at that time I hated sports. Growing up, I would beg my mom to write a little note saying that I'm on menstruation or something, that I don't have to work out. Like I hated sports.
Okay.
Strange,
It's
right?
like a complete turnaround now, but okay.
Yes. So then I went back to Denmark, and I had this friend who was completely into sports. She was a basketball player. She was going to the gym a few times a week. So I told her, like, now, look what happened.
Help me.
Please help me. The first time she took me for a 2-3 kilometers run, first of all, I thought I was going to die. I was in pain for a week. Second time she took me to the stadium, around the neighborhood. We ran around. Then she made me do a plank. I've never, like in my life, I never saw a plank before. She held me there for like 40 seconds. It was horrible. The worst pain of my life. But then as you know, as I tried doing it more and more regularly, and then we started going to the gym as well, somehow it became a thing. Like
you started to enjoy it.
I started to enjoy it. I started feeling different. I started feeling more happy. I had more energy. So with time, it just became a habit. It just became a part of my life. So I'm very, very grateful for having that friend back then.
Okay, so you started getting like the emotional and mental boosts that come.
Yes.
A lot of people talk about that as the plus that comes with working out.
Yeah.
Even if you're not trying to lose weight,
Yes.
it's just something about
Yes.
how you feel. You feel good.
So what happened actually after about maybe 3 years of me, going to the gym, working out, then I started also looking into the nutritional aspects as well, because I'm like, if I'm working out, Then I go out on a Saturday and I drank myself until, I can't stand anymore. Then like it's like kind of contradicting to what I'm doing.
A lot of people don't think about the alcohol, I mean the nutritional value of alcohol. They think about food.
Yes, but not alcohol. Yeah, we will talk about it later.
Okay.
And so what happened is that I started going to certain classes, and I had my favorite instructors, my favorite classes.
And were these aerobics? Was it yoga?
It was like body fit. It was like a combination of a bit of strength with like some small weightlifting, a little bit of cardio. I started going for Pilates, a little bit of dance classes. So it was like a combination. At some point I even did boxing classes. So I had my favorite instructors, my favorite classes. And at some point it became boring. I'm like, now I know she's going to play this Jason Derulo song, we're going to do push-ups, and then she's going to play Britney, and then we're going to do squats. So I'm like, this is like a bit, it became a bit boring because I knew what was about to happen, but I already tried all the instructors at the gym. I didn't like the other ones.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, now
so
what?
It was boring, it was routine.
Yes. And then at some point I'm like, you know what? I could actually be standing there and doing what this woman is doing. I could be teaching these women. And the reason why I came up with that, or I had this idea, because of how fitness made me feel. So I like to say that weight loss is actually a side effect, because you get so much more, first of all, so much more energy during the day. You are much more productive. It's like, if I don't work out, all of a sudden I have to nap every single day for about 30 minutes. The moment I start working out, it's like, and it happens every single time. Like, sometimes you fall sick and then it's so hard to get back into your routine that you end up not working out for a month.
Yes.
And then you're so tired, you're exhausted. So I know myself, like, okay, Claudia, you haven't been working out. Like,
it also gives you some kind of like mental clarity.
Yes, exactly. But what really made it different for me is actually the growth, like mental growth. Because all of a sudden, when I started, I was this weak little girl who could not even do a push-up. And then like after like 4 months, 5 months, all of a sudden you can do 5 push-ups and you're like, oh my God, can I really do this? And it's really more about your mental capacity, your mental strength than your body, really,
Because you surprise yourself with what you're capable of.
Yes. So I'm like, okay, if I could do 5 yesterday, I can do 6 today. So slowly you start pushing yourself. And then when you see how you're actually growing, somehow you end up translating it into your personal life. So I was like, you know what? I've been working out for so long. And now it's so easy for me to say no to a cake. Like maybe if I'm going to a birthday party, yes, let me enjoy it and celebrate my friend. But if it's a Tuesday, I don't really need to eat that cake. I already did my 10 push-ups yesterday, right?
Yeah.
So why should I now spoil it with the cake? So somehow I'm like, okay, you know what? If I actually said no to this cake and the world didn't end, I can say no to maybe my boss giving me an extra task that I should not really be taking on, right? So like slowly you just become stronger,
and more disciplined as well.
Exactly. Yes, definitely. So I remember at some point of my life, my friends would call me Saturday and I'm like, we have to go out. I'm like, no. Tomorrow morning I'm going for body pump at 9, and then at 10 I'm going for a boxing class.
Okay.
That was literally a point of my life I would say no to going out. I had this year of my life. Okay, I was going through a breakup.
So you needed something to focus on.
It was my way of coping, yes. So I got really addicted, and I would say no to going out, and you need social life, yes, definitely. So maybe it was a little bit too much at some point.
I think that's a good way of coping. That's
definitely better than going out all the time and drinking every day, right?
Drinking your sorrows away.
No.
Okay.
So I felt like, you know what, I'm growing so much that, whatever body results are coming along, it's just like a side effect. It's just an add-on. It's a bonus. But a lot is happening in my mind, and it's positively affecting my relationships, my work, my personal life. So let me actually do it for other women as well. Because I remember my mom. I remember my mom being a stay-home mom, and she really dedicated her life to me and my sister and my dad. My dad was the family provider, but my mom would completely sacrifice herself for us. And I was like, you know what, I wish my mom had the strength back then to do something for herself, to, you know, feel better. Because sometimes she would be like, oh, because of you, I haven't done this or that.
Oh yes, our parents do like to make us feel guilty.
Yes.
There's a bit of that.
Now I'm like, Mom, it wasn't me, it wasn't
your
us.
choice.
You decided to have kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just like, you know, sometimes I feel sad that she didn't do more for herself in life. So I want to help women to do something, even if it's just little, even if it's just a class a week, but they can go away from home and do something for themselves where they don't need to think about kids, cooking, home, grocery, whatever, you know, picking up medicine in a pharmacy. I found that this is something that makes me, you know, enjoy my work, but also it helps me impact women.
Yeah, when we spoke last, you talked about how as women we're constantly taking care of everyone else.
Yes.
Which I think is the reality.
Yes.
And somewhere in that shuffle, sometimes you get lost.
Yeah.
But I think more and more people are speaking about, you know, how important me time is.
Yes.
And finding that thing that gives you joy.
Yes.
So this was something that was giving you joy.
Definitely.
So you said you looked at the instructor, the trainer, and you were like, I can do that. And you didn't like any of the other trainers. So when did you actually start on that? Because you said you did it on the side?
Yes. So my husband calls me a little box.
Okay.
He says that it's quite hard for me sometimes to get out of my comfort zone. So he's like, you just like want to sit in that little box, and sometimes you just need this push. And that was the time when he came in. And, you know, I was telling him how maybe I could do this, but I feel a bit scared because now, you know, I'm not yet fluent in Danish. How will I stand there and teach in Danish? Because all these women are, you know, teaching classes in Danish because it was in Denmark at that time. And then he's like, but there's plenty of internationals in this town that don't speak Danish. Why don't you do it in English?
Okay.
I was like, okay.
So you kind of find an excuse not to do it.
Yeah, a little bit, I think. I was scared. And then I found that the gym where I was training at, it was like a chain. So they had a lot of gyms around Denmark. And they also created a fitness academy where they were teaching people to become trainers and instructors. So then I came across this course and I told him, you know, there is this course and it's on weekends, so I can still do my full-time job and do the course. I think it was about 3 months. And he was the one who pushed me. He's like, go for I think it was like an audition that you first had to go in. And I remember passing that and I was so scared, and I'm like, now they're going to speak Danish, and what if I don't understand, and they're going to teach me anatomy. And I remember learning all these muscles and joints in Danish, but I had to translate them into English. But for me to make sense out of it, I also wanted to know them in Polish because that's my native. So if you tell me hamstrings, I'm like, what the hell is a hamstring? Like, I need to know it in my native so that I understand it. So I remember having these little post-its, or what are they called, these sticky notes, you know, Danish, English, Polish, like, oh my God.
Oh my God, so many of them. Oh my goodness. So Danish translated to English, then translated to Polish.
Because now I learned Danish in English. So Danish-Polish translation does not work for me.
Okay, that's a lot of work and determination.
And trust me, I don't even know these muscles in Polish anymore, because now I work in English, or I used to work in Danish when I was in Denmark, so I don't even know the words in Polish. Now it all makes sense in whatever language.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
So you grew up speaking Polish?
Yes.
And writing the language? Did you learn the language in school, how to write in Polish?
Yes. So everything was in Polish. Growing up,
when did you learn English then?
So we have 2 languages that we have to learn at school, and in most cases it's English and German, unless your parents choose for you to learn something else and they send you for private classes.
Okay.
So we were learning English and German at school, but I don't know, I think it was like planted in my head because of the war, the Second World War. I didn't want to learn German for some reason. It wasn't very smart of me back then. Now I wish I spoke another language, but yeah. what to do. And then I really wanted to learn English because I knew that this is the language you will need if you have to travel. And remember, I always wanted to travel.
leave.
So I remember all my friends would go to like dancing classes and football after school, like this after school activities. My mom was like, no, you don't need any of this, but I'm going to send you for English. That's the only thing I can ever send you for after school.
Okay.
It was very, very smart of her.
Okay, because you mentioned
Yeah.
that your parents only speak Polish.
Yes, yes. It's like the elder generations in Poland, they mainly speak Polish or maybe they speak Russian, also that's influenced back then by the war. But there's not so many, you know, elder generations that speak actually English. It's the newer generations, the younger people. So
Okay.
yeah,
All
my
right.
husband can never communicate with my parents. So when I translate, I choose what I translate.
That's a little too much honesty.
They don't know.
So both sides are safely oblivious.
Very. Like, you know, also because sometimes you'll say something in one language and when you translate it doesn't make sense, right? So sometimes I would try, like Paul would say a joke and then I translate it and my dad is like,
What?
it's not funny. And then sometimes one would maybe say something and I'm like, I think maybe the other one might feel offensive. So let me just add something.
That's interesting. Very interesting. So clearly your husband was very supportive.
Yes.
You said he gave you the
Yes.
push and the,
Yes.
like go out there,
Yes.
try something different.
Definitely. And,
What
and
was he doing at the time?
so at that time he was working, he just finished his technical school. Yes, and he started working as a carpenter in construction. So he had a full-time job. I had a full-time job. So I started doing the course, and with time I started teaching classes. So I would have maybe like 2-3 evening classes and maybe like a 1 weekend class. And it actually turned out quite nice because he used to work out every day as well. So we would go to the gym together, he would work out, I would teach, then he would come home.
Okay.
So with time he was like, I actually like what you're doing and I've been like working out for 8 years. But I don't really see myself standing in front of these women and teaching because there's a lot of women who go to classes, at least in Denmark, and there was not so many men.
Okay.
So he was like, maybe I could actually become a personal trainer so that I could do one-to-one. We would always end up working at the same places. I think at some point we had like 7 free memberships in 7 different centers. That was a nice life. Oh my Never had to pay for gym at that time.
Okay.
Yeah, and then so somehow I felt like this was something that allowed me to grow, allowed me to impact other women because I decided to mainly work with women. I only had a few male clients in my life. And now I'm completely focusing on women only. And so with time, I found myself being very miserable at my full-time job. First of all, I had to drive 100 kilometers one way.
What?
Staying in the office for 8 hours, driving back 100 kilometers.
That is crazy.
So thanks to the highways, it's only about 1 hour and 15, which you can easily spend in Kampala traffic as well. But it was tiring in the long run. Like when I calculate, I'm like, that's like 12 hours in a week that I'm spending on transport, just sitting in the car doing nothing because you can't work, you can't answer an email, you can't
You're just driving.
You're just driving. So with time, I really found myself miserable. And I was working with a friend who used to be my flatmate during school years. And he even asked me, like, Claudia, when you come to the gym, you're like, you know, full of life, very energetic person, and then I find you in the office and you look like you're about to die. I'm like, well, this is also how I feel. I literally, like, I was walking like a zombie in that company. And it just, I think because it was a big company, around 3,000 people, I felt like my little work is not even impacting anything. It's like, yes, we are building these big windmills, but how do I know which part of my work is in there?
Yeah.
So I know.
So making the shift fully wasn't a very difficult decision for you. Deciding to quit.
A little bit.
Was it?
So, you know, I would like come home and cry, and then my husband is like, why don't you quit? And I'm like, quit and do what? It's like, but you can work with fitness. Now you have something that you're really passionate about. And I'm like, fitness for living? Are you crazy?
Like I can't make a living out of
How
that.
can you live off that?
Wow.
And he's like, but you know, Miriam, you know this one. Like they fully live off fitness. They're personal trainers and then they teach classes and they do nutrition.
But you couldn't see it.
No. And then also, you know how growing up you have this, your parents are putting it in your head. You have to get a good education, get a good job. So now, my parents helped me to go abroad to study.
And go and get a good job.
Yes. You know, their daughter moved abroad, studied abroad, got this amazing education, this good job in this big, well-known company. Now she's going to teach aerobics. That's what my grandma still thinks I do, by the way. She always asks me, so Claudia, which means little Claudia in my language, like, Claudia, are you still teaching these aerobics for these women? Is anyone coming for these classes? Yeah.
Okay.
So that was this part, like, you know, I'll disappoint my parents if I quit. And my husband is like, yeah, but are you unhappy?
And
If
clearly you were.
then yeah. So I went to, I think it was like 2 days before the end of the month, because you had to quit by the end of the month, so you only had a month left, right? If I did it on the 1st, then I would have to stay that month and the next month. So I'm like, okay, it's like 2 days. Let me do it now. So I come to work and I write this resignation email. I was alone in the department, no one was there. I was shaking, my heart was beating, I had a stomach ache. I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I was about to press send and I was so scared. And then LinkedIn sends you these newsletters sometimes. And I don't even know how that happened, but they sent me a newsletter. My phone vibrated, I opened it and it's an email, it's a newsletter from LinkedIn saying there's 685 job opportunities in your area. So when I saw that, I was like, you know what? If not fitness, there were 685 opportunities in my area.
I can try one of these.
Let me see. Then I
So
pressed
that gave you
send.
the little push.
Yes.
Okay.
So it was both my husband and the newsletter that I randomly got on my phone at that time that helped me send the resignation letter, and I did that, and it was definitely one of the best decisions.
It's a different world.
Yeah.
So your husband was he also doing personal trainer? Was he doing that full time as well?
No, so he was doing it part-time.
Okay.
And at that time he was working as a carpenter, and that profession is literally you working outside in the winter. So I think after a year he told me he was physically exhausted.
Okay.
And so he decided to take another education. So he went back to school to become an architect. So he took it to the next level, but he was still doing fitness at that time.
Okay.
So he was perhaps working like 10, 15 hours in a week. So he would be teaching classes. I convinced him to start teaching classes. I told him it's much more fun when you're doing it with a group, and now he loves it. Now he's also doing it still up to now, and also in Uganda. And it actually is nice to have someone who shares your passion. So when I come home and I tell him, you know, now my client can squat all the way down and she wasn't able because of her knee pain at the beginning, she knows what I'm talking about, and you know, she's excited as much as I am.
That's nice.
Yeah.
He understands where you're coming from.
Yes. Yeah.
So when did you decide to move back to Uganda?
So again, it's a Danish system, I believe, that the last part of the education is an internship because they want you to get the practical experience. So he also had this, I think for him it was 1 year where he had to go and work for a company. And we always kind of felt like Denmark wasn't definitely something we would do forever. We were just two foreigners, you know, trying to have a life together, but our family is, at that time my sister shortly lived in Denmark, but my parents are in Poland and his family is here. So we felt like even if we want to start a family at some point, we would have no help, you know. Traveling is not always, you know, super easy.
Yeah.
So my husband really wanted us to move to Poland, but I felt like it wouldn't necessarily be the best choice.
Ah.
Because
so he was thinking Poland.
He was. He really, really loves my culture. He loves my family. He loves my country. He's been there many times. It was you asked me at the beginning how often I travel. When I was living in Denmark, it was very easy because it was just an hour flight, and the flights are very affordable. So we would go every 2 months, sometimes every 4 weeks, depending on our schedules. But it was easy.
Okay.
It's no longer as easy
Yeah.
living in Uganda right now. But yeah, he wanted us to move to Poland, but I was like, you just moved to Denmark where you had to start from scratch and learn the language to integrate, and you'll have to do the same thing in Poland because there's not so many people speaking English, only the newer generations, and it's going to be hard for you to get a job and find what to do. So I felt like it was a little bit challenging. And
Had
also,
you already been to Uganda? Had you visited?
Once
Okay.
for like 4 weeks.
Okay.
And then also, we don't have that many expatriates or that many foreigners in Poland. There's a small percentage, and it's only like in the very big cities. So I felt like Poland, unfortunately, is not yet very open-minded. So I felt like it was going to be very hard for him.
Yeah.
And then, he asked me, okay, what about Uganda? And I was like, well, it's an English-speaking country. It might be easier for me to adapt than for you adapting in Poland. So we could try.
Okay.
So that's what happened. He had the 1 year of working for a company
here.
So he found an architecture company here. We came in 2020, and it's been now 2.5 years.
So you came in 2020, and I
Yeah.
imagine shortly after that, the country locked down then.
6 weeks later.
So even if you had plans of, let's just do this for a few weeks and I'll go back, life happened.
Yes, life
Okay.
happened, and at that time, so I was, I think, working with fitness for about like 3 years, full time in Denmark, self-employed, and that was my idea for Kampala. And then we come, and my husband starts his internship. And then I'm like alone in this big city, not knowing much. I'm like, okay, let me try to find how I can, work in fitness, and then boom, lockdown.
Okay. All
My
right.
mom starts calling me, oh my God, you have to come back. Pandemic. I'm like, no, it's going to be fine. We don't have many cases here. It's just 3 weeks of lockdown, and then 3 weeks became 4 weeks, and 4 weeks became 9 weeks. Yes. At that time, we were living quite far from the central.
Okay.
So we had a house that belonged to our Ugandan friends who lived in Denmark, and they told us, why don't you come and stay in our house while you look for something in Kampala? So we thought, okay, maybe we'll stay for like a month or two while we're looking for something, and then we got locked in that house. It was in Bayagere.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yes. I remember walking around for walks or, trying to buy groceries, and people would call me Corona at that time during the first lockdown.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
It was more like, kids running around like, Corona, Corona. I was like, wow.
This is a first, honestly. Okay, sorry.
I remember doing grocery shopping, and once my caretaker came with me, he's like, look, let me come and help you so I can carry your bags. He would call me Muzungu for the first month. He'd be like, Muzungu, let me come and help you. And then I found this one lady who had everything. She had broccoli and beetroot and pineapple and potatoes. So I would just go to this one lady, buy everything, and then he put it on a border, send it home. But that time when I brought him once, he started screaming to the lady because the lady was overcharging me.
Yeah, I'm sure you've experienced
Yes.
that quite a bit.
At the beginning, yes, until I learned the real prices. So even like at the beginning, I would take walks, but then people would shout at me, call me Corona, cheat me. So I was like, okay, let me just stay home and wait for this lockdown to finish. But that's actually when I started. I created a group on Facebook called Health and Fitness Uganda.
Yes.
And I started going live with every morning, or maybe like 4 or 5 times a week with morning workouts at 9 in the morning. And I remember I actually had quite a big amount of people working out with me every morning.
That's how I first saw you. And I'm
Yes.
like, oh, who's this lady? She's not
Yes.
Ugandan, but she's jumped in full,
Yeah.
like full force. And at that point, it seemed like you had already like planned this path. But now I'm hearing it's just
No.
was just kind of happening.
It had to happen. I'm like, okay, I'm
Because I
sitting in
thought,
this
okay, she's planned,
house.
come to Uganda, set out the plan. I mean, then you had your ebook, and then
Yeah, that was also something I started working on during the lockdown. I'm like, okay, now I'm in this home, big house. There's nothing to do. We are, getting a lot of matoke sent from the village every single week. Let me learn about this food, because I'm a nutritionist, but that was based on the Western food, the European food. So I did my my research about the local food, cassava, gonja,
sweet
peanuts.
potatoes.
Yes, and I started working on the ebook, and I'm like, okay, I have all this time in the world. Let me do something, and that was actually very successful. I had a lot of Ugandan women getting the ebook, and that was like, it was so. I was impressed. It was so beautiful that when I finally got out of the lockdown and I got out of my house, I was involved in a project at that time in a company in Bugolobi. It was a fitness company. So I would go to office and bring my lunch, and I would take pictures and post it on my stories. So with time, women who bought my ebook and read it started also preparing their food, and they started posting on their stories and send me pictures. How did I do this morning? Is it enough proteins? Is it enough carbohydrates? Should I put less potatoes? And it was so nice to I don't know, to like find a way to integrate in the society.
Build this community.
Yes.
I like that you took the time to research the food that we have here,
Yeah.
Ugandan food, because
Yeah.
a lot of the nutritional suggestions and
Yes.
meal plans have things that you're like, where am I going to get that in
Yes.
Kampala? Where am I going to
Yes.
find this food, right?
Yeah.
And then you started to also address the diets, because I think most women, myself included, have had our ups and our downs where you're like,
Yes.
I put on weight, I'm going to stop eating this, and I'm going to stop.
Yes.
This is bad for me. No sugars.
Yes.
You go crazy, and then you can't maintain it. You
No.
can't maintain. I'm not going to take any sugar anymore. I'm off bread. I'm off
Yes.
chapati. I'm off
Yes.
rice. No
Yes.
carbs.
Yes. And I've done this as well. we all have.
Yeah.
And with time, I learned to understand that none of these things are sustainable. So all these
That's the
keto
word,
diets,
sustainable.
low-fat diets, I don't even know the names, but there's so many different concepts and diets and that people promote and people do.
Because even if you do have the drastic weight loss, you can easily put it back on
Yes,
if it's not a
exactly.
lifestyle.
That's what happens. So I actually, when I work with my clients, I teach them how to live a healthy and sustainable life. So, I teach them about how to decrease portions, but still go for your chapati. Why would you say no to a chapati?
Chapati's heaven.
Exactly. And so I teach people how to adjust their food so that even when they go for a birthday party or brunch at Sheraton, they can still, eat the food that they want, but at reasonable, amounts, and something that will not, create these drastic changes. And so you will see me on a Friday having a glass of wine in a bar. Even though I'm a fitness freak and I'm a nutritionist, you will see me having chocolate cake. And when I'm on my period and I cry, I do have an ice cream or chocolate cake because we need it.
Yes.
But at the same time, I'm going to try to maintain, drinking my green smoothies, having my, proper breakfast in the morning, not skipping it because I'm in a rush and now I can't eat. So like having regular meals and being consistent in it and in adjusting your portions is really a way to go, and you can take it forever, even when you travel, even if you go to the village, even if you attend a birthday party, like it's easy to maintain. So I rarely, unless you really ask me, but I really rarely put people on these strict diets because you will lose the 5 or 10 kilograms that you want to lose. But then what happens? Like then you stop and you're like, now I can eat my matoke. Now I can eat my rice.
I can eat whatever I want to.
Yes.
And also you'll be miserable.
Of course.
Food brings so much
is
joy.
life. So yeah, I mean,
So everything in moderation, just once in a
Yes.
while.
yes.
So would you
Definitely.
say there's some people who look at the concept of having a cheat day. Like every week you have a cheat day where you can indulge, whether it's in fries, French fries, or you have your ice cream or your chocolate
Yes.
cake. Do you think that's the way to go about it?
Yes, that will keep you sane. I remember when I started dating Paul before I became a trainer, we were very like addicted to working out. We would have a routine, wake up in the morning, go to the gym, have our porridge in this small containers at the gym before driving, then we would drive to work, meet at the gym again, like we had our life figured out. And then we were like, on Friday we're going to order this pizza, or we're going to go out for this amazing dinner. Like it was even like we had to plan for it, like we have this one meal. What are we going to eat? And it was fun, it was exciting. And then sometimes you're like thinking of that burger, and then you end up in a restaurant and then you see the menu, like, no, I'm going to cheat on this pizza today. And it's like, it creates excitement as well, and it makes you like, I don't know, just
Isn't it also like
enjoy
a reward also?
definitely, because
Yeah.
you're like, I've really worked hard for this week. Let me enjoy myself.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
So when we last talked, you
Yeah.
were expecting. I think it was
Yes.
just a few weeks before you had your
Yes,
daughter.
yes,
And at the
yes.
time you were sharing basically your lifestyle as a pregnant woman, what you were
Yeah.
doing, exercises, how you were eating and all of that.
Yeah.
I am sure once another human being comes into the picture, everything has changed. Life has changed in so many ways.
Yes.
How is it being a mom?
Challenging. It's challenging because in one moment you want to scream at this baby, you want to run out of the house, and then the moment you have some time for yourself, you're like, I should be home with my daughter now.
You feel guilty.
Soon she's going to be big, and you will not experience this cuteness anymore, and then she'll be throwing tantrums and be like, Mom, I don't want to do this. So it's definitely a journey of ups and downs. Like in one moment you're so happy and enjoying the time together, and then in another minute you just want to run out of the house, and then you feel guilty, then you're tired, you want to sleep.
It's interesting, right?
it's an
It's so rewarding,
interesting-
but sometimes challenging.
Yes, definitely. But it's a beautiful journey. And to see how much a human being is developing in the first 12 months,
Thank you.
like what happened?
A year in an adult's life is nothing, but when you have
crazy.
children, it's crazy.
It's crazy. There was a time recently, so now she started walking a few weeks ago. And my husband, there was a Sunday that we both had to work, and we don't have help on Sundays. So she was just running, grabbing everything. Like the moment you sit her on your lap, she just looks like, what's for grabbing? What can I take? And we were trying to work, and she's walking around, and my husband is like, do you remember that time she was laying in one spot and we wished for her to move?
And now you can barely contain her.
No, now that she started walking, like when you say come, she just laughs and turns around and runs away. Yeah.
So it's interesting how, you came to Uganda, you didn't really have a plan, and this has all unfolded over time. So right now, what exactly are you doing now?
Yes. So right now I teach classes 3 times a week at a studio called Karuna in Nakuru.
Okay.
It's a little wellness studio that started as a yoga studio, but with time it evolved into having different classes. That's also where Paul, my husband, teaches. We have Pilates, we have HIIT classes, we have suspension training, but there's also like a masseuse, a therapist, a nutritionist, me,
Yeah.
and a chiropractor. So it's like a wellness little space. So that's where I teach, and I do my nutrition coaching as well. That's more like one-to-one. I recently actually started a weight loss program, which is 12 weeks long. We are now at we're about to start week 9. So it's a group of 12 women who, come to work out with me twice a week, and they all have a meal plan that they have to follow. And we have a WhatsApp group, so we keep on inspiring each other and motivating each other. So that's one part of the work that I'm doing.
So I imagine after the 12 weeks, then you start again with another
so,
group of women.
Exactly. So I'll probably travel in June, but as soon as I'm back in July, I'd like to start a new program. And it's also something that I used to do in Denmark. So these weight loss programs, it started as 8 weeks long, but women would say, you know, in 8 weeks, like you kind of want to continue a little bit more because you don't feel secure enough to continue on your own.
So that's why it's 12
So
now.
it's 12 now, it's extended. So yeah, about 4 programs a year, hopefully. And then, so that's one part of my work. Then I also recently started doing nutritional talks and workshops for corporate companies. And it just happened. I was approached by someone who, you know, worked at a law firm and asked, can you come and do this for us? So it just happened on its own. And then I'm also a content creator. So I create content around wellness, mainly on Instagram. Now it's evolving also a little bit to TikTok, because I see this as a growing platform in Uganda as well. I do have a podcast called We Talk Lifestyle Podcast, and that's everything. That's wellness, it's lifestyle, it's nutrition. And wait, I'm not done. What else am I doing? I recently became a yoga teacher. Yes.
Okay.
So that's something I always wanted to do, but somehow the time would never align. So there would always be something standing in the way. And I finally managed to do it this year. So I only graduated a few weeks ago. So I haven't yet taught a single yoga class yet, but it's going to happen.
Starting.
Yes. I'm hosting a wellness retreat at Lake Mutanda.
Oh my goodness.
End of May.
All right.
Yes.
So when you look back at the time where you were so scared to quit that job and you're like, what? How can someone live on fitness? And then now where you are, isn't it crazy?
It's crazy. And sometimes I think we just have to take that leap of faith, because you feel like, okay, I can't live off fitness, and you're only thinking aerobics. But then, you know, with time you actually realize that there's so much more you can do. You don't necessarily have to just stick to teaching classes, but there's so much more in one field that you can do. So
so you keep on growing and evolving.
Yes, and it's still challenging, and it's still sometimes you're like, you know, I'm doing this retreat. Will anyone sign up? Like sometimes you doubt yourself. And then when things happen, you're like, why was I even scared?
Well, if it scares you, that means generally it's an important, powerful thing. I mean, because if something like, I can do that, no problem. Are you being challenged enough, right?
And I think they say if your dreams are not, if
your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much, Crystal.
Oh, lovely having you on Crystal One-on-One. This was overdue, and just hearing your journey about, let me see, I'm moving to a new country, and just being comfortable enough to absorb and learn as much as you can. That's also very important. That's on you.
Thank you.
That's a gift that you have.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Well,
and it was a pleasure. I remember watching your show before I moved to Denmark. So now being in one of your episodes, it's really amazing. Thank you for having me.
Oh, my pleasure.